us by saying, well, if you put a bunch of kids together in a room and you raise them with the same material, put them in the same environment, you really can't say one kid or one race will do better than the other, given all things being equal. And there was a couple other black kids in the classroom, and they didn't say nothing either. They didn't know how to defend the position of our race. When these people, ladies, was literally putting our race down like we was the dumbest race on the planet. And we couldn't defend ourselves. Well, I couldn't. I don't know what their reason was why they didn't speak up, but I couldn't. And I really felt embarrassed again of more, not only embarrassed, but helpless. It was the helplessness that I felt, that I couldn't defend myself intellectually, that bothered me so profoundly that I left that class when it was over. I walked out of that building and I never returned again. I never returned again. At first I had my tutor to laugh at me, and then I had my professor, to belittle me, in my whole race, and I couldn't do nothing about it. I was helpless. I didn't know anything. I was uneducated, had the lowest educational systems in the world teaching me, so I didn't know anything, how to think, how to do it, put thoughts and stuff together, to create, some type of order of consistency with my thoughts. So it was a very painful experience, to say the least. Again, so after, like I say, for several 5 or 6 months of being back home and not really feeling any different than I did, when I left the first time. And then having the school do what they did on top of it, uh, having nobody to really support me, nobody to encourage me, like, yeah, man, you're doing a good thing. Keep it up, man. Stay in school. You're the first generation. You'll be the first generation to graduate from college. I mean, stuff like that. Ain't nobody telling me nothing like that, man. Ain't nobody in my family, nobody trying to and give me no words of encouragement or nothing. You know, so so I ended up leaving again, man. But this time, I headed toward Buffalo, New York. And the reason why I headed toward Buffalo, New York is because I wanted to find my mother. That was the last resident that I know she was in, and I know her last name was Cox. So I took off, got the Greyhound again, and headed toward Buffalo. When I got to Buffalo, one of the first things I did was I went to the phone book and I looked up some Cox. And I started calling her. I must have called about 3 or 4 of them. But after the first 3 or 4 no's, people saying, no, we never heard of her. My mother's name was Artie Bell Cox, like you guys know Artie Bell Cox. After calling about 4 people, and none of them knew her, I just got discouraged and stopped calling. It wasn't like it was a whole page of cocks in there, maybe 10 at the most, maybe at that time. And I didn't even follow through with it, man. Just got discouraged. Got people telling me no, man, no, 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 and I stopped. Found out years later that my Uncle John was in there, and I kept going. But I guess it wasn't meant to be at that time, you know. So I didn't really hang out too much, hanging out in the bus station and again, sleeping in the park across the street from the bus station and first few days. And then I met a guy in the park. He was throwing football. He was throwing the football with the guy. I kind of liked the football. At the time, I loved football too. So I kind of, joined in on the catch game, And he told me that was when I was in Buffalo. That was a time that they was ripping apart Main Street, because they was finna run a trolley all the way from Main Street downtown to Amherst out there at the University of Buffalo, And mind you, one day I was walking around. I don't know. I'm just very curious, a very curious wanderer. And so I was going in and out of buildings, downtown just to see what was up in there, what kind of businesses, and well, who's who, whatever. And I remember walking into this architectural office, asking for a brochure of their current projects, what they're building, what their current project that they're involved in. And the young lady probably looking me over, seeing that I don't look like no money, was trying to get me to spend. But just so happened at that time, a group of men walked out the office, mostly Orientals, and this one black guy. And the black guy stopped at the desk and asked her, "What did I want?" And she told him he wants some brochures of what we doing the current. And he told her to give me this particular project, a brochure of that. And then when she gave me the project, I went outside, I looked at it. I'm looking at the future of what this mass transit gonna look like when it's finished. They already tearing up the street downtown all the way up to Amherst in the suburbs to run this underground rail system. And the black guy was the engineer, architect behind the project. So I'm excited. I'm like, wow, this is cool. I'm going all over town telling people, hey, y'all, look at this. It's a brother. He's gonna redesign the whole trail system downtown all the way to Amherst. It's a black guy architecture office that's doing it. And people excited. They happy to get this knowledge. People from Buffalo, they don't know. I know more what's going on about the city, the development wise than they do. They was surprised, So I thought that was so cool. I could see the future or something. As they tearing it up now, I know what it's gonna look like. Some people asked me for some of the brochures. I gave some of them, But that was one of the things I thought I just speak on because I do things like that and when I'm wandering around new cities, and I just go in and just ask questions about stuff, see what's going on. You just never know what might pop up. Uh, so back to the guy that was throwing the ball. Uh, he told me to go to Rochester, New York. He said there was a lot of jobs. He said a lot of jobs in Rochester, man. You know, Buffalo is kind of like on the downside. You know, factories are leaving, the steel mills are closing, you know, but they're thriving in Rochester. So I put, I made a note of that and put it on. And we got through playing catch. Shoot, I think I went to the bus station and got me a ticket and went to Rochester. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't even know nothing about no Rochester, New York. You know, I didn't. So I didn't know nothing about Rochester, New York, man. And so I get to Rochester and see a newspaper. And the front page is a dollar bill. The whole front page looked like a dollar bill with the bold writing at the top. Rochester's rich. You know, it's the home of Xerox and Kodak, you know, IBM, you know, Eastman School of Music. You know, it was just, I thought that was so cool, you know, for them to be so boastful, you know, with the whole front page is a dollar bill. They say, yeah, we rich up in here. We got it like that. Very conservative, laid back town. But it was in a good location, though. Wasn't that far from Buffalo. Wasn't that far from Toronto, Canada. Wasn't that far from Cleveland, Ohio. So I set up camp in Rochester. You know, when I wanted to go party on the weekend, I get the Greyhound. I go to Buffalo, hang out. When I get through, I come on back to my little room. I got me a YMCA room downtown across the street from the Eastman School of Music, you know, and just chilled there for a moment, you know, and whenever I wanted to leave, I might go to Toronto one weekend and hang out, come back. Another weekend, I might go to Cleveland, Ohio, catch the Greyhound there. It wasn't that much. Go to either three, and all three of them was nice cities, nice urban cities. So then I can come back to my little conservative, you know, humble abode and just chill without all the big city noise, if you will. So I'm hanging in Rochester, and it's a different vibe. But for some reason, I'm feeling like I never felt before in America. For some reason, man. You know, I remember this one bar I used to go to called Cavasi's. And I go down there, man, and I go to the bar, man. He was a black bar, but it's ran by Italians. And I walk up in that joker, pour my weed on the counter, and roll up a joint and fire that motherfucker up right there. Nobody say shit to me. I'm like, damn, that's some cool shit. Ain't nobody saying nothing to me, man. They just let me do what I do. They let me just be me. I'm like, damn, these some cool motherfucking people here. And I'm cool anyway. I'm gonna invite, you know, I go into the fellas. You know, hey man, y'all want to smoke weed? Blah, blah, blah. So I had a good relationship with the community, with the fellas, you know, so, you know, That was my spot. And guess what? When I first moved to town, that's the first place they told me not to go to. And that's the first place I went. And I had a hell of a good time. You know, every time I went to them, I had a good time. You know, and so after a minute, I ended up getting a job at Coca-Cola and loading trucks with the pops to deliver the next day. It was a good job. I liked it, you know. And I liked it. I really enjoyed that job. Yeah. And while I had that job, I used to love to ride 10 speeds. I had a Raleigh back then. It's a nice boy. It was a nice one. Aluminum frame. It was a nice Raleigh, you know. Ride to work. You know, I used to ride to work with my Raleigh, you know. It wasn't that far from downtown where I was at, so. And that was a good job. But I met these white guys, man. They was out of Holyoke, Massachusetts. And but every summer they'll come to Rochester to work with their uncle and to earn some painting.